last time I talked about the emergence and the conflict of the value systems, and this section hopefully will pay more attention to the phenomena of abuse of value, the perceptual pandemic of our time, driven by fatal conceit of a few, namely intellectuals, thinkers, thought leaders, and ignorance of many who follow them. So that's my definition. I really want to discuss with you guys this effort of building up a stage-by-stage development of our consciousness. So I'm proposing a hypothesis here, which says, which try to figure out from a logic point of view how our cognition system really works, perhaps with the help of a multi-layer self-organization framework. So the table goes like this. From at the very beginning, well, there is no look, no listen, no touch. My cognition system is simply turned off, sleeping, or if I'm awake, I probably can become a handicapped. So the stage of nothing at all. And then the first stage is I start having some look around, but I really not really achieved some solid result of seeing. So that's the status in English phrase says, look but not seeing, listen but not hearing, touch but not feeling. And it's actually a pretty common phenomenon if you pay attention to the social, to the society. You can see this kind of phenomenon. So in this stage, there are some basic awareness of the environment, of others and of the self, but that awareness is pretty low in this stage, or at a minimum. The result is that, okay, this is a person with a fuzzy mind or a retarded life. And their cognition system is functioning at a minimum. And we call this mental disorder. So that's not something interesting. To the better stage, we start functioning normally of our observing function. It becomes active. So we are actively figuring out what is this. Like looking at Jamie's slides, we want to figure out what it is. When she was talking about a third law of logic, we're asking, what is that? Okay. And at this stage, our brain effectively doing something we call pattern recognition. So either it is a mark or a drawing, a line of distinction, or a circle, or a container, or a triangle, that are all different patterns that our brain is trying to produce. And in this stage, I tentatively to say the judgmental, the distinction of the focus is this thing true or this thing false? So those conflicting images Lou just used all fall into here because the two persons at the two observer point, two perspectives can argue about the true or false of that is 3 bars or 4 bars. So the focus here is correct or incorrect, and hopefully people can get into agreement here by experimentation, even falsification, and certainly communication. Now, more sophisticated, the next layer would be once what is this is figured out, then the thinking process, I call the thinking function, start active. Of course, you will argue that, well, any observation involves thinking and every thinking involves observation. I'm sort of just separated the brain itself versus the sensory organs outside the brain, okay, or linked to the brain. So at this stage, the focus question becomes what it means to me, or what's in it for me. At this stage, I think the emergence is not just a pattern. It's more than a pattern. It's whatever interests me or not interests me. Okay, so you can also put the economic or financial interests here as well. So at this stage, the criteria is no more true or false. It's a good, bad, or utilitarian criteria. Is this useful for me? Should I pay attention? Should I spend my time on it? Or it's just useless, let's pass it. So that kind of a decision making is at this stage. The next one, more than figuring out the interests. Maybe I call it insighting. I don't know which English word is better here. The purpose is at this stage, we are figuring out, should I do something about what I just learned? So maybe the core question is, what if? Should I fight or should I flight? Using that really Thomas catastrophic dog example. So a decision needs to be made by maybe some internal value system, maybe by some models of the world. More is going on than pattern recognition, interest recognition. At this level, something called right or wrong kicked in. So you make your right decision or you make a wrong decision. Next level is more sophisticated. The higher the number, the more sophisticated or later it emerged based on the previous emergencies. So here, some kind of a predicting function we are picking. Like a question might be, why not well, it looks like a banana. Why not I climb that tree? Of course, I take a risk to climb that tree to pick up that banana. Or if the cognition is seeing some strange movement of the grass on the side of the river, then here I have to make a decision, is that a lion there or is it a tiger there? Should I run away? So there is some mental model consists of my past experience. It is helping me to make a prediction of what will happen next. And then I know whether or not I should run away or not. So at this stage, I think the cognition system is recognizing opportunities. And in other words, a goal is set at this stage, not at the early stage. And also at this stage, a judgment could be, well, this is good for myself, good for my community, good for my tribe, or this is evil, this is not something we should do. I think ethical, the value system emerges here because we want to talk about the value system. So it's pretty late stage in our cognition system that we build up ethical or moral compasses. And even there is a higher layer that I think Larry or Carl mentioned in the chat box, desirable or not desirable. Okay, so desirable or not desirable, I think it's already entered into atheistic direction, dimension. So it is still value, but the value has probably detached from the interest level as well. It's just something pretty, beautiful, I should chase, or something ugly. Well, the ugliness works for some ugly people, but that's not me. So I will leave it. I will not involve things like that. So, and then they may even have more layer, the top layer, what previous scholars called the global or universal view, or someone said God's view here. It's regarding to a futuristic survival concern. And what's here, I have not figured it yet. But the point is, when we talk about cognition system, note all here. This all here indicating two types of a cognition system. One is my cognition system. Individual. As an individual, I go through all these processes. But since we are in a society, we have a community and we have groups. So we discuss, we use language to help each other. So also at our level, at the community level, there's also the similar situation going on. So that is the initial proposal. And also, in previous in last session, I discussed about the diversity this process will generate. So definitely you will see conflicts, or you will see frictions, all started from differences. Now, duality of values pointing out that even within one living system, you could develop totally opposite value systems, two different value set. Like one value set will be order oriented. So let's have getting things more organized. So that we feel more control, and we become more right and less wrong. But the other thing is, if you are too organized, if you have a very static order dominating you, you start feeling bored. So you would want to make a change. You would like to have a different kind of a creativity. In other words, you want to break the current order and move into a new stage. Like a chicken inside an egg being hatched, and there's an order going on inside the egg, to the point that the egg's shell needs to be broken, and the chicken inside the egg needs to get out. So either the order increasing process and the order disrupting process, both of them are needed by the life of this chicken, but they need to happen at different time. So here I said that the two-party system is a happy accident because both parties are promoting one set of the values. Democrats promoting Democrat set of a value that is not agreed by the conservative, the Republicans. And Republicans promoting another set of value system that is actually also needed by a society. So if either one goes to the extreme, we're having a problem. But if the two set of value system can take turns, or transition smoothly, then we have a better, healthy society. So that these layers of what is being produced by our cognition system. Here in this table, in this list, what you see is pretty linear. It's one layer after another, one layer after another, as you're turning on the lights in your brain. But the actual situation is not linear. So what you see I'm talking about is simply oversimplified stuff. Now the more real situation is that many feed loops are going on among them. So in classical cybernetics, we have 4 types of feed loops. We have a feedback, we have a feed forward, and we have negatives and positives, both of them. So we had 4 there. Now these feed loops, if we bring into this framework of multi-layer self-organization situation, and between the different layers, they are feed loops too. So here, I want to use this. We have a negative feed done. We have a positive feed done. Influence from a higher level, influencing the lower level processes. And they have both positive type and negative type. And we also have a feed up, lower behavior sabotage up layer processes like strike, lie flat, some phenomena you can observe in your society. And positive feed up is the lower process enables, facilitate upper level processes. And similarly, I was talking about the feed left and the feed right, and both of them have the negative and positive analysis. So this is a proposal to invite you guys to temporarily jump in and to use this kind of analysis to see the internal dynamics going on between and among these processes. So that's the definition of abuse of value is here. An original good value being pushed beyond the boundary and used for different covert processes. Example, okay, I used a very controversial example, the climate hoax. Okay, if you don't agree with that, then next one is the woke phenomenon. The next one is LGBT dominance, $0 shopping. All of these examples initially start from some kindness or compassion or some kind of goodwill. But the good, well, I missed the very important one, the social welfare system. The social welfare system the starting value is that we need to help those less fortunate. Yeah, everybody needs to give a helpful hand. But look at the current situation. A huge amount of people refuse to go to work, but purely living on the social welfare. That creates a huge social problem. So those are examples, and damages a lot. If you keep an open mind to look at the social media reports, voices from different people. And okay, so the point to raise the question of abuse of value is that we really need to find out cures. And okay, so let's pause this. Thomas Sowell had a very interesting quote. He said, much of the social history of the Western world over the past 3 decades, it's pretty new, only 3 decades, has been a history of replacing what worked, namely traditional value set, with what sounds good, something sounds progressive, sounds nice, but in fact, creating troubles to our current society. So this thing called political correctness beyond common sense, I think fall into my definition of abuse of a value. It's misusing originally good values like equality and compassion, and start generating pathologies of our society. More examples. These links, I can send it to you later, but this is a Harvard report. It reluctantly tells the truth about what killed South Africa. So the whole country of South Africa entered into current mess due to that so-called CRT theory, critical race theory. And this is another report, similar direction. And also there are reports of this woke movement, Middle's Chinese Cultural Revolution. And I totally agree, because I had experienced Chinese Cultural Revolution. And what I see today here in this country is getting closer to closer. Not that worse yet, but very closer towards that kind of a situation. How multiculturalism is fracturing American is another example. The most recent high-profile incident is this Boring company with the Alaska Airline Company having an extreme, terrifying safety incident. And this incident is directly related with the so-called DEI ideology. Okay, so far it's several weeks past, no serious investigation result is getting reported. And this is the issues going on in our world today. Not just Eiffel Tower, it's outside there. And if you take that Alaskan airline and in the sky and suddenly something fall off of the airplane, and you can see what I'm talking about, Israel. And also the current argument about the border crisis. And this guy posed a question to Democrats. We have 3.6 million Black kids in poverty. Why do Democrats choose illegal alien first? So that's his question. I don't have any answer. I wish our Democrat friends here could come up with a satisfying answer, and I will learn from that. So that's about what I have to say, is that similar to the abuse of wealth that Max Weber addressed, counteracted with Protestant ethics, and abuse of power, that the invention of balance of power had cured, at least have a hope to cure. And here we are facing the third serious abuse in human civilization. That is a good value being abused and generate pathologies to our society. And we need to find out cures. That's why I have to say we have 30 minutes for your questions.
I just need to go on record. I don't know how the Zoom controls did this. I never said it, but the balloons went up. So AI was listening and somehow tapped into a connection I made. I don't know. But the balloons came up when you showed this person holding the sign in protest, and all the logical typing errors that were on that sign is what I was connecting to, the decontextualization, the lack of implicit knowledge and attention to language. But I just want to go, since this is being recorded, I want to go on record that I am not celebrating that sign in any way. My first work was in refugee resettlement. So that's a mysterious black box, so to speak, that is in the room with us as long as AI is here. So thank you.
We didn't see those balloons.
We don't see either.
It will be on the recording, I think.
I saw them. Thank you. I knew
That's another very interesting example. Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
I want to make a plug here for all these conferences that Gerard organized before I knew about cybernetics, about problem solving. The slide that you showed of the lady who raised the question, she wasn't solving a problem. What I saw, and so there are multiple ways of looking at that. Like I see a narrative, and the narrative is about pushing buttons and triggering. And there is nowhere an attempt to say, what can we do, or how do we identify the problem and how do we solve it? Instead, I immediately see something with trigger words. And so then I'm aware of the triggering. I've experienced it myself. I know what happens. But then I see stories who try to raise awareness about the triggering so people can.
I think that question comes from the debate in the Congress about how much money allocated.
Yes, I know, but the whole point is, what is the purpose of the slide? Is it to create further division, or is it to solve a problem?
No, it's to search for the answer.
No, there is no answer. Okay, sorry.
No answer?
I apologize. I already got triggered. What I meant to say is, if we switch to the problem-solving mode, then we need to give the problem a name, and we make very clear the three different things. So there is the naming of the problem, then we have alternative solutions, and then we pick one and we need to work on it.
Can you come up with an alternative of that question?
Yeah, but so then when I see that, then I see a narrative that is mixed in, and that was what I was trying to do with the black box, because it's really, there are so many things that are mixed together, and they need to be separated to find a good solution. And so, like, to give an example where I would have done something different is, you said at some point, fairness versus equality. And so here, I think logic would say there was something that you missed. Instead of contrasting fairness with equality, you have to have a box for, that is what I mean by fair, but you do that by opposing it with not fair. And then you say, that is what I mean by equality, and you do that by opposing, this is what it's not. But you don't immediately put several constructs together and say they're the opposite directly. You add extra distinctions, and then I think you get a completely different narrative, and that gets also to what Lou said about the unobservable. I've noticed there is a trend, and it comes from behaviorism, and I think it's extremely unfortunate that George von Fuster didn't push back to Maturana when Maturana said stage 1 is the observer. Von Fuster should have said, no, stage 1 is the drawing of distinctions, because the word observation has so many different meanings associated with it that you can spend an entire Zoom session on just figuring out how you use it, how I use it, how Lou uses it. And so in this narrative that you presented, I see too many binaries where there's so much more to it than the way they're presented. And that is also, for instance, sorry, and then I'll stop. You brought up that metaphors won't work at stage 4. So that in itself is metaphor switching. That itself is a fascinating comment. There's so much to be said about that. Like personally, I think metaphors start with logic. So metaphors for me are everywhere. And in itself, that's something we really need to talk more about, because it is when people think of their words as literal instead of a façon de parler that the trouble starts. And then, and this is my last comment, dus what is behaviorism? It's say focus on the observable. So then we make the mistake, we look at a person and we think he knows what he thinks. But we're 100% clueless about the 8 billion people and what they're thinking. Is we're projecting our own thinking on them. If we want to know what they are thinking, we need to ask. And I didn't really see the discussion about asking, and the recommendation of a totalitarian regime is totally the opposite of asking. It's actually scaring people
Putin
into
just
submitting
went to
and
Moscow,
following a leader.
interviewed Putin. So that is asking. Have you seen the result?
Now, Putin is not the important one. It are our neighbors that we put labels on without ever having a conversation with them. And that is what I see as a problem that is easy to solve.
Jerry.
Thank you. Jason, I really, really enjoyed your presentation because of the very careful way you crafted your distinctions and in an attempt to be persuasive, compelling, other sorts of things that would change behaviors. And so there's more than a touch of brilliance in your presentation.
Thank you.
But what I found missing from it was, number one, a crisp logical structure. Okay. And two, a disregard for methodologies and the necessity for methodologies in order to draw any sort of conclusions about how one might go about changing the world, as opposed to just, shall I say, bitching about it. So that methodology issue would be very helpful there. The third part, of course, is what Lou has always been very strong on, is there must be some form of mathematical structure to the world and the universe. And this strong belief in this necessity for a universal structure.
Well, I better make a comment on that. As far as I'm concerned,
Can I finish first?
Mathematics is studying what a distinction would be if there could be a distinction. The whole thing is fictional.
I agree with
It
you
is our
100%.
significant fictional work.
I agree with you 100% in terms of the language of mathematics. In terms of the language of mathematics, that it is a creation of the human mind. But it is not solely a creation of the human mind, and this is where I want to return to Jason's point of view. And it's also, I think, closely related to Gerard's point of view. And that is that there are methodologies that work in the world, methodologies that one can use to change the world in such manners that you can actually predict, in some cases, often predict, and sometimes make sound conjectures about what will happen next in the world. And that's the problem I have been addressing for several decades. And if you want to see the consequences of that, I recently published about 3-4 years ago, a paper on Introduction to Organic Mathematics. And so I will stop there. And I don't want to get involved in the political discussion, which I certainly could enter into if I so desired, but I'm not going to, and just recognize that Jason has put together a rather remarkable synthesis of polarizing views. He's taking the opportunity, the way he uses languages, to present opposing or polarizing views of how he sees human society, human culture, and the human mind working from his life experiences. So thank you, Jason. I appreciated it.
Thank you. Thank you. Larry or Gerard? Gerard, go ahead.
One of the things you might say, let me rephrase it, binary distinctions are extremely dangerous if we talk about them. For example, if I say to Jerry, this is fair, he might react, and we have been discussing things for many years, so I can predict what he is going to say. He will say something unpredictable. And I think that that is one of the most interesting aspects of this whole debate, that nothing is fixed to the point where it cannot be broken. So if I say to him, you have left, you have right, he say, no, 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 you have another way. You can go straight on, and so on. So what I think is missing in the picture of all the different levels is that they are all static. They are all, this is the way it is. Whereas as soon as I see a picture like that, I have the feeling, oh, but there is something and it doesn't fit, and there is something and it doesn't fit, and there is something and it doesn't fit. So if you say to something, to somebody something, the something is actually not the thing that is being said. It is the constraint on the individual such that you hope that he will respond in a way that is unpredictable and will actually add to your way of thinking. So I hope, and it is mainly in reaction to Jerry, distinctions are not what we are about. It is what a distinction stimulates, what it opens up. It is the black box, in a sense, that says to you, well, this is the constraints that I'm putting you in, but you are free to do whatever you wish. And among the three things you can do, I will select one of them as a possibility, but it's only a possibility. So I thought I should be a champion of freedom.
Yes, I would just respond to that, Gerard, because as you say, we've been discussing these things for several years, and with great joy. I mean, it's been a very special occasion to speak with you from time to time. But the point is that there are things that one can take with, shall we say, that are mental objects that one can take from an internal view of the mind, are taking with firm conclusions that this is either truth or reliable fact or whatever that is internal to our mind. And that does not necessarily apply to the world. But there are other cases where it is necessary that we act And now that we have to move from our internal views to actions on the world. And in that process of action on the world, which I agree is going to introduce uncertainty. And that uncertainty can be minimized by depending on how novel the action is. And here I would just point out to the practice of medicine, where the physician necessarily must make some assessment and some ascriptions of what is going on in the patient's body or mind. And as a consequence of that, must take some action, professional actions, which he hopes will cure the disease or, very broadly speaking, improve the situation is much better put. And so that the amount of uncertainty that is faced and how much it can be reduced depends a great deal on the situation, the so-called situational logic that is put together by our friend at Stanford, the mathematician, the category theorist at Stanford, who does situational logic and the nature of logics being formed. And his very special form of logic that he uses is a so-called relevance logic. And this relevance logic is obviously very dependent on which language you choose to express yourself in. And so the whole huge, shall we say, a huge mass of vast differences in what the terms mean is critical to understanding how all of these factors interrelate in any particular situation. And Jason takes one particular view of situations and articulates quite well what it means for his way of thinking. So I'll stop there. I'm wandering away here from the basic line of thinking.
Larry, you haven't say anything yet except in chat box. So let's hear from you.
I don't have much. My position is that if you change thinking, let me think. This is addressing Jerry's methodological question. My position is that the kinds of situations we find ourselves in now are going to require a significant change in the way that we think worldwide. Okay, and if we change language, we'll change thinking. If we change thinking, we change society. Now, that doesn't make me a cynic. It doesn't make me a pessimist, but it doesn't make me an optimist either.
Jamie, concluding remark. You muted. You still mute.
Well, yes, thank you. I wanted to make, since Jerry left us with something very interesting to comment on, I will maybe do that also. When you said uncertainty about the physician, and then you went to relevance logic as a way to do situational logic. But I think what Gerard was really saying, and that's the way I understand cybernetics, the clock is ticking. We live in a changing world where everything is changing. And so we pretend it's not changing, but it's actually changing. And so that is why I think it's so dangerous or it's so unfortunate and tragic, I would say, that people went along with Otto Neurath when he said, dus that is a famous article, 1913, that he say gambling is the optimal, it's absolutely the best model for decision making, while in reality, it's all looking at the possibility and the cost of making the wrong decision and try to minimize the likelihood. For instance, the surgeon who operates on you, he doesn't work. I mean, uncertainty is just a gross simplification of what's going on there. He went to a school. He got trained for like 10 years maybe. He had to practice, and he's not alone there. There is a team, and they're all looking at what he's doing and whether he's doing the correct steps. So this whole process took a long time, and it's very easy to destroy. And that is what I think Jason is organizing such important, why this session is so important, because it's so easy to destroy relations and make people suspicious of one another, because that is really what's happening now. Everyone seems to be, I mean, at least in the generic discourse, that people become suspicious. And it's tragic what happens at the 3 universities with these presidents, how the whole process is simplified. Now, maybe my last comment, Jason, is for you. It's about science too. I think there's something really important going on there, and that science needs to be made more visual or visible. I use the label psychoanalysis, but so I learned not to worry about the label, more about the box. And it gets back to what you said about K-12. But before K-12, we're all babies. Everyone is a baby at some point, and I think that is where the binary comes into existence, so to say, when we get pushed out of the womb. I think there's an intuitive like, dislike, self, other, and then omnipotent, big, threatening, as opposed to me, helpless. And that somehow a lot of people flick back to that sort of thinking, while in reality, as soon as we use language, we switch to a non-binary way of thinking, because language is way too complicated to do it with a binary. And so that there is something in our world too that really can help, in science too.
Let me comment on that. I highly recommend a book to you. You see, back in Science 1, we all agree that work of Galileo, Newton, Einstein, and even Hawking, their work are the Bibles of Science 1. Now, in Science 2, actually, it's not new. It's a lot of people already working on that. And the best Bible of Science 2, I recommend to you, is called the Change Handbook. The Change Handbook. When I encountered that book, it was containing about 18 different methodologies of how they do Science 2. Now, they didn't use this word, but I see now it's very clear that is Science 2. And now they have a second version. The methodology increased from 18 to 16. And my own work back in China between 2002 and 2009, we developed a package, the training package called the Roundtable Leadership. That was maybe another one to add into that book. So it's all about stop talking about the truth. Stop talking about the right and wrong. Let's run together. Can we be together? If we can be together, we build up something. So that is 6 C's of Science 2. So Change Handbook, if you don't have that, let me know. I will send you an e-copy. Yes, that is exactly, Larry posted that. So if you don't have that, let me know. Otherwise, we are 11 minutes past our time, and I should thank you very much. Do you want to do another session to follow this? What topics would be? What would be the title of the new session? Let's think about that and decide in the email.
Okay, I'm just throwing something out here if people are interested. So there is this Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and when I went there, they have like maybe 5 different entries on decision making. So 5 very different ways of thinking about decisions, or maybe it's 3, but it's definitely more than 2. And so I thought it might be fun if we kind of say, what does it mean to make a decision? Because there are some people now who say we don't make decisions. It just all happens, and it's only after the fact that we say, oh, we made a decision. But in reality, we never make decisions. So there is some, whatever, there is some different ways of using the word decision. And maybe I'm just throwing it out to think about it, whether that's something interesting to have presentations on. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a real possibility, yeah.
I think there's also a link to trust in groups. I recently, for the 3rd time, became a grandmother, and I had the privilege of watching the newborn. Well, I was with my daughter-in-law when she was pregnant, and then immediately watched the newborn becoming, just from what you said, Jamie, that difference of now being out in an atmosphere. And for that whole first week, he wanted to be right as close as he could be to her. And over the period of, so this has a lot to do with attachment and the human nervous system and who we are. And over that week, I watched, he has 2 older siblings. I watched how his attention was moving away from mommy so much, and the most basic needs of comfort, and but more to being curious or looking and using the sensory apparatus. So I think very much now in the discussions I'm in with teams or team building, especially with younger people, the issue of trust is coming up, which for me relates to media ecology literacy, trusting if, is this a truth or someone else's truth? And so, Jason, I appreciate the call to the polarities. I have an ability to sense into sort of the space in between those polarities, which is why the work I'm interested in is helping facilitate dialogues with people who are not like-minded. Because all those years of hanging out in the gray spaces, I can hold that cognitive dissonance gently. So
Maybe you can do a presentation about how do we build up trust.
yeah, I'm not sure yet. This is an open inquiry, but there's Jamie.
Very interesting research.
I want to say it is very interesting because in management, there was some guy who wrote a paper that there is a market where you can buy and sell trust. And I think that's just an outrageous argument. But he got away with publishing it. So the fact that he was able to publish it is saying, okay, what are those reviewers doing? I mean, that they don't see the flaws. And so there is this whole system that is interacting where there some things happening that are strange. May I also comment on the baby who originally wanted the mother? That is because, as I understand, the voice of the mother, he came in existence on hearing the vibrations of the mother and all those around her. So it was beautiful. I thought the way you described how you describe that.
I'm getting the chills. So his name is Sammy.
Sammy, yeah.
And then the other thing too is how interesting once we name a baby, right? So the name, I knew when I was teaching English as a new language, I had to label things, but I also knew how much I was limiting them for the student in front of me. So there's the polarity. I'm really interested in how we can play in the complementaries.
So I think that is where this concept of gestalt switching is so important. And that's just my opinion, but I think Laws of Form is a book that you can only understand if you're doing all the switching. And what I've also discovered is that the way people write about it, they say, oh, that was something from the 60s. And now we know it's an input error or something. So they talk dismissive about it. Well, I think it's fundamental. And so there is no polarity. It's just the creative switching from one way of thinking to another. And that's my pet peeve. It is really something in those philosophy of science departments where they totally ignored creativity as being important or something you can say something about. And I think that's where cybernetics comes in as the counter, or no, not counter, a different way of thinking that tries to highlight creativity.
Well, to follow up for both of you, I recently introduced a method to another group where Lisa is coming from, the ethics group about international relationships. The practice is a workshop we call my shoebox of my life, the shoebox of my life. That is at the first day of our training program in the evening, when everybody sit together in a circle. And the homework is everybody must prepare a shoebox to bring to the meeting. The shoebox must contain the most treasurable souvenir, that stuff you value most in that box. So the practice is everybody will pass around everybody's shoebox, while the owner of the shoebox will tell the story of their life experience. So that is the way we did a strong change of the group. Because before our training program start, there are a lot of corporational politics going on. You don't like me don't like him, and somebody's gossiping about the other. They all have an unhealthy image of someone in the same team, which is the same management team for the same company. So how do we change that? Is we used this game to get everybody share a piece of their mind that they never had any chance to talk about during their daily work. Now sitting together, and the seating must be in a circle, so everybody can see everybody, can feel everybody. And that is an amazingly successful practice. Somebody even cried during the scene. Somebody will bring getting out a ballet shoe and tell us a story about how difficult and how hard to have ballerina training, and that sort of stories you never had a chance to tell to your colleagues before. So after that, suddenly the whole team feels more like a team. And then, and the explanation of there's another session similar to this, is that we watch a movie together. And that movie is The Flight of the Phoenix. If you have heard that movie, The Flight of the Phoenix, it's a movie, it's a plane, airplane crashed in the desert. So nobody is going to rescue them except themselves. So this team of people arguing with each other, hate each other, storming with each other, eventually needs to work together to rebuild their airplane and to fly out of that desert. So that's a very good movie. There are two versions, the earlier one and the newer one. Both are very good. So I highly recommend that. But we're already